welcome to another edition of South Texas Crossfire. This is Attorney Joe Flores reminding you to join us each and every week right here on KTMV. We're here with a very special guest, the Tammy Tran law firm, none other than the lead counsel, Tammy Tran, the founder of the Tammy Tran law firm, and she is bringing a lawsuit on behalf of some Vietnamese Americans. They have been wronged according to the allegations involving Michael Watts. And now the dragnet of this and the media and Bloomberg and Law 360 have picked up and are indicating that Bob Hilliard and a Mr. Kraken may have financed and been connected to this lawsuit. Good afternoon, Ms. Tran. How are you?
I'm good. Good afternoon.
Good. Thank you for joining me. This lawsuit, when I read it on, in Bloomberg and the Corpus Christi Caller-Times here locally and 360, I was amazed at this. Now, are you alleging that on behalf of your client that Michael Watts did not have the permission, nor did Mr. Hilliard or Mr. Kraken to bring a lawsuit on behalf of some Vietnamese Americans and your lead plaintiff?
They do not have permission. And if you look at my original petition,
I did.
Exhibit 1 has the two documents. Document number 1 is the name and her address, which was included in the first petition that Michael Watts filed with the federal court in Houston for the Southern District of Texas. And then that case, as you recall, that was sent to Louisiana.
Yes, ma'am.
To the Eastern District of Louisiana before Judge Bob did.
Okay, so it was filed in Houston, then transferred to Louisiana.
Short form joinder.
Uh-huh.
In that short form joinder, her name, her exact identity, such as the social security number, address, and date of birth, everything was included.
Without her consent?
Included in the short form joinder filed by Michael Watts.
And you're saying that it was without her permission or knowledge?
No, without her permission. We have talked with Mr. Mike Watts, and we asked for the contract and the consent, in Texas.
Okay.
You have to have two things. You have to have a contract record on our attorney to represent somebody, especially the ethical rules that if you represent a person in a contingency, you must have a written contract. Mr. Watts is a Texas lawyer. He has to follow the rules. Okay, now, the next thing is you have to have the consent, because the consent authorized Mr. Watts to work with, any other co-spouse. You have to have two things in order to file a contingency lawsuit in Texas. Mr. Watts has been requested. He has promised. He never, ever given us those two documents.
And you asked for the file and for the contract, and you represent her, and you did not receive those documents?
No. We never received those documents.
How does Mr. Hilliard and Mr. Kraken fall into all this? We know there's allegations against Mr. Watts in federal court, and there are only allegations and indictments. Those are not evidence, ladies and gentlemen.
But if you read the indictment,
yes.
The indictment mentioned attorney number 1 and attorney number 2.
Yes.
So when I read that, if you read the media, if you read the
I did read it. I'm just trying to explain to our audience.
The article from Reuters, Thompson Road, And they said that very clearly that the whole universe was supplied to learn about attorney number one, attorney number two. However, nobody knew who was attorney number one, attorney number two. So I thought about it. I started to do some research. And by the grace of God, a very good friend of mine, I cannot identify his name, very high-profile criminal defense lawyer, helped me to do that research. And we found out attorney number one is John Bracken. Attorney number two is Bob Hewlett. And if you look at the email, it fits what describes the email. She said, stand for John Bracken, okay? And then I sent the demand letter to John Bracken and Hewlett. After we just discovered their name for the first time in October, we sent the letter out. And then December 23rd was the first time I received the phone call. I remember it was in the late afternoon. Mr. Mithoff said, Tammy, this is Richard Mithoff. I was very impressed because Mr. Richard Mithoff is a very, very good lawyer and very, I say that excellent. And then he called and he said, and I'm a very big fan of him. And he said, Tammy, can I represent Bracken and Hewlett? And I have some extensions based on the lawsuit, because Bob Hewlett will be filed in the GSA.
Okay.
And I said,
And let me stop you there for a second.
I understand that.
Let me stop you there for a second, Tammy. Just to clarify for our listeners, I know you're on the phone and kind of coming in now just slightly. Attorney number one, you found out through your research, was John Kraken. Attorney number two was Bob Hilliard, that was mentioned in the indictment with Michael Watts.
Right.
And
I
their
sent the demand letter.
and their attorney, Mr. Mithoff from Houston, Texas, contacted you and said for you not to file the lawsuit against them?
Not yet. Until Bob Hewlett GM case is over.
Until the GM case is over that Bob
Right.
Hilliard had, they told you to hold
And
off
Bob
on filing the
Hewlett
lawsuit.
was about to start a GM case.
Okay, did he tell you why he
No.
told you to hold off on that?
Right, and then I wait, and we have, communication between me and Mr. Mithoff. Mr. Mithoff never denied that, hey, Tammy, you sued the wrong person. Okay. In my demand letter and the draft petition, I spell out exactly attorney number one is John Bracken. Attorney number two is Bob Hewlett.
Bob Hilliard, okay.
But Mr. Mithoff did not say, Tammy, you're suing your wrong person. And then and I wait, and then until one day I saw from the media that Mr. Bob Hewlett case was thrown out by the court because he tried and lied on the stand. So I wrote an email and I talked to Richard Mithoff and I said, hey, I need to file it again. My client has been waiting patiently. And then we sat down and we talked. We had a meeting, and we had a meeting with both of them. I cannot tell you what was discussed in the meeting.
Right.
Because as you know.
It's
but
privileged.
Never before, never at any time, neither Mr. Mithoff nor Mr. Clark or Mr. Hewlett said that the attorney number one and attorney number two are not Bracken or Hewlett. Does it make sense?
Right, and then you said,
It's not like I just sue. I talk to them.
right,
There's a lot of emails exchange. I even met with 3 of them. Okay, and and they never deny.
now
That
you,
attorney number 1 or attorney number 2.
right, you are quoted as,
I'm not practicing for Hubert.
you were quoted as saying, I've invited and restate again to invite his lawyer, Mr. Medoff, referring to Bob Hilliard and Mr. Kraken and the reporters to come to my office and examine my client list. Not surprisingly, he and his co-conspirators who filed 25 federal complaints in Houston and 44,000 short-form joinders in the Eastern District of Louisiana allege that his team represented these clients, including a dog and dead clients, and have not agreed to do anything like this. The reason is simple. Mr. Hilliard and his co-conspirators could not believe that there are lawyers who indeed have real, not ghost clients.
Right, okay. Let me explain to you. I represent 1,063 clients, VP clients. But we wrote it because in his email, Mr. Hewlett responded by, I allege to represent the client. To me, it's an insult. But I think maybe, Mr. Mithoff, Mr. Watt, or Mr. Kraken, or Mr. Hewlett would not believe that there are real lawyers who have real rights. So I said, come on up with the permission of my client. In fact, I already seek permission. I send them, I sent each of them a letter. I said, if I have to produce the POA and the consent, would you allow me to? And if you don't allow, so please, communicate it with our office in Leeds. They all agree. We have a staff that has called them. So they all agree. So I respectfully invite anybody to come and examine those POA and those consents.
You mean power of attorney, POA,
Those
power
POA
of attorney.
and those consents have been loaded with Mr. Kenneth Feinberg since the 2010.
How many?
And have been loaded with administrative practice journal. They are real.
Tammy,
Okay.
Tammy, how many clients do you, Tammy, how many clients do you have that are saying that their identity was stolen?
Okay, right now I think that we have about over 500.
How many?
500.
500 clients that are saying that they were on lawsuits they didn't give permission for.
Yeah.
In Houston alone.
I think that they are in Houston, in New Orleans, in the Gulf State.
And how did they get a hold of these names if you know?
I don't understand your question.
How you're alleging that these clients were used and they didn't have a contract with Mr. Watts, Mr. Hilliard, or Mr. Kraken. Then how do you think that Mr. Hilliard, Mr. Kraken, and Mr. Watts got those names?
If you read the indictment, I think the indictment is the fifth of all. Even though you keep telling me the indictment, and I agree with you that the indictment is not evidence, but I think everything in it is true. This case is a very big case, and I think the DOJ did a wonderful job in identifying all of the bad conduct.
And for our listeners, DOJ is Department of Justice.
Yes. And the U.S. Attorney Office. And how to, your question is, how do we know? I mean, I learned from the indictment. And then with the way that I had contact with the Watt from day one, 2010. 2010, I have contact my co-counsel, and I cannot name their name yet. There are two co-counsels who are very famous lawyers. And then I requested them to contact Michael Watt because the Vietnamese community and the Vietnamese fishermen are very concerned. The majority of the people, I mean, many people that they have never met Mr. Michael Watt. They've never met any person in Mr. Michael Watt's office. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, so it's not like the first time. We haven't been communicated with Mr. Watt since 2010.
So 6
He
years.
always promised to give me the contract. And, I mean, the POA.
Power of attorney.
And then also the consent. POA or the consent has never been given to me.
So for 6 years, for our listeners that are maybe having a little trouble listening to following the conversation because you're on a cell phone.
I did not know about the involvement. Nobody knew about it until we read the indictment in October of last year about Mr. Brackett, Mr. Hewlett. And if you read the email, you can understand that the involvement of both genders was very, very, very deep. You know, it's not like, you know, they just invest the money. They knew it. They knew about the fraud, but they did nothing. They did nothing, and they let go. And even in one email, Mr. Bracken also say they are all ghostwriting, and we hope that KL, meaning Christy Lee, the runner, can convert them into real fight.
So you're saying that Mr. Kraken and Mr. Hilliard knew what the allegations that Mr. Watts had signed up these clients that weren't his. This is what you're saying.
They knew it. It's not like a bank who loaned a bank employer money. No. They are front bench. They are open poor. They knew it. If you read those emails are true emails. You call it allegations, but I think they are real emails.
And again, you're listening to South Texas Crossfire. We're interviewing Tammy Tran, attorney at law, and she is the founder of the Tran Law Firm.
Let me point it out to you. Why? Because if you look at what we cited in the petition, what I cite is exhibit number 3. There is a letter from the law firm of Mr. Kenneth Feinberg. The lawyer of Mr. Kenneth Feinberg sent the letter to everybody, to PP lawyers, to plaintiff's lawyers, saying clearly that out of thousands, 10 of thousands of the names, they could find only 2 contracts, and only one was passed.
Out of all those names.
Only one POA was signed.
Okay. And you asked for those things for 6 years.
I have a list of clients. I asked Mr. Watt to give me those lists for 6 years. I think this is the conspiracy of silence. This is all of the cover up. And I think Mr. Bracken and Mr. Hewlett were deeply involved in this fraud.
And what are you seeking in your lawsuit? What are you asking for in the form of relief for these clients that you represent?
My complaint. I'm sorry, my petition. My petition point out misappropriation of identity law very clearly. In Texas, Mr. Flores, you don't have, all you have, example, I use your name. I use your name as my client. As Joe Flores. I filed it with the district court. And I assert that you are my client. You don't have to get hurt. Now, keep in mind, you don't have to look anything. I don't have to say anything. But by the fact that I invaded your property, using your name, using your social security number, your address, your date of birth, or everything private about you, I already, violated that law. And then the compensation would be actual damages, special damages, and punitive damages. Actual damages include mental anguish.
I understand, and
So meaning that saying that you don't have to lose any dime. I don't have to gain any dime. But you need to keep in mind at that point, even though Mr. Preston and Mr. Hewlett would not share the fee with Mr. Watt, the common benefit fee that he would gain from being on PPP. However, they were standing to share the over $2 billion.
how much?
$2 billion. If you look at
$2 billion?
$2 billion. Mr. Watt, with the help of Mr. Hewlett and Mr. Preston, got 44,000 plus Vietnamese names.
44,000 Vietnamese names.
They submitted to BT and asking for the total amount of, let's see, 2,538 something. Let me find it.
It's a little bit over $2 billion.
I have the exact amount in my petition.
44,510 Vietnamese.
44,510 Vietnamese.
And asking for over $2 billion.
Amazing that none of them is Caucasian, Hispanic, African American. None of them is anybody else but Vietnamese.
Well, let me ask you this, Tammy. Look, you're an advocate for the Vietnamese, okay, and for the Vietnamese people in America. And how many clients could you ever get 44? And you're Vietnamese, American. Could you get 44,000 clients like that? Do you think?
No, unless it's a class action.
So,
in fact, that is a class action in San Antonio, and I now serve as the class counsel of those people, of those 44,500. Okay? It was an agreed. It was an agreed order. Okay. Now, you ask whether I can get those clients? If it's not because of the class action, no. It's just humanly impossible.
Are you going to be at the Watts trial in Gulfport, Mississippi, with your clients when it goes?
The whole Vietnamese community.
You're bringing the whole Vietnamese community to the trial in Gulfport.
I am not bringing. They are bringing themselves.
They're bringing themselves. So you expect, when we cover the Gulfport trial, you're going to have the Vietnamese, they're going to come by themselves. Many Vietnamese Americans will be there.
Because we believe that the days of discrimination, of selective discrimination, we believe that it's the days of abuse is so important to the Vietnamese community because 44,510 Vietnamese American men have been stolen. And you know, to this day, but for the action of the Department of Justice.
Now, Bob Hilliard.
Nobody but for.
Bob Hilliard says.
We are in America. The Department of Justice has spoken.
Tammy.
No lawyers.
Tammy.
So many lawyers knew.
Didn't mean to interrupt you, Tammy.
Listen to me. So many lawyers knew that Michael Watt list is fraud. It's stolen. Nobody said a thing about everybody. It is just a conspiracy of silence.
Tammy, Bob Hilliard is saying that you're just looking for headlines on this. How do you say that you're addicted to the headlines? How do you respond to that?
Okay, in order to be addicted to headlines, you have to be famous. Okay, high profile. I think I am just a very humble Vietnamese lawyer. I am a mother. I'm a grandmother. I'm a Vietnamese American, and I'm honored to defend my people. It just happened that this case is newsworthy. But I am not seeking to be, I'm not seeking any headline at all. In fact, you know that you yourself know that you try to schedule this show, and it's very difficult for me to make because I'm just a country lawyer. I have to make a living. I don't have time, to chase the facts.
Well, and we've got a couple of minutes left, and we're going to go to the feed, and you're watching South Texas Crossfire. You're on with Tammy Tran, who is alleging that over 44,000 Vietnamese have been exploited by the Watts firm, and that the Hilliard firm and Crackett firm were involved. She's filed a petition, and she's also saying that in the federal trial of Michael Watts that Vietnamese Americans will be there, and we will be watching and covering it on South Texas Crossfire. Anything else before we sign off, Tammy?
Yes. I wanted to say something. Mr. Schuler in his statement.
I'm sorry?
In his statement, in his email to the media, Mr. Schuler said that this case is baseless. Mr. Watts said this case is baseless.
That the lawsuit is baseless.
Criminal case against him is baseless.
Yes.
My civil case in San Antonio is baseless.
That they're saying all your lawsuits are baseless.
And Schuler is baseless.
Right.
Just look at this. Look at my petition. Kim Kiewit name for you. The name, identity, social security, everything was copied and filed by Mr. Michael Watt, the Southern District.
And we're, with your permission, it's public record, so we're playing it up on
Yes.
we're going to put it up on TV.
And the exhibit is very important. You look at it.
Yes, ma'am.
How could it be based? To this day, it has been 6 years. I have been asking Mr. Michael Watt to give me the POA or the success. He has produced none. Okay? At first, during the first year, he said he was ready with the PS. Within the last 3 years, he's very, since, he was investigated. He died because of criminal investigation. He could not produce. So, to this day, my client has filed an affidavit, which I filed with the federal court, saying that she has never met any person from the Watts team, that she has signed nothing with Michael Watt or any person from his team.
And we have permission to put that up on TV, don't we, Tammy?
Yes, you can
Well,
Read, everybody needs to read the complaint.
well, we're going to put it on TV and let them read it.
Another federal complaint that I dismissed it so that I could file in San Antonio. I dismissed it because I knew if Mr. Watt was signed because it was about to die. So, he asked the judge to pay that case. And I would be glad to provide you the cost number. In that petition, in that complaint, we included this Kim Tilwin. We include Miss Kim Tilwin affidavit.
And we do have one of the case numbers.
I started. Mr. Claxton, Mr. Hewlett to provide the POA or consent, then I dropped the case.
Power of attorney. That they don't have any on behalf of the clients.
And I dropped the case. Immediately. Give me that, and then, if it's necessary, we can have the signature expert. But I don't think that they even dare to produce that, because there is none.
Well, you've heard it here.
If they give me one POA from consent of my client, I got that case.
Well, we're going to have to let you go. I know you're busy, but we're going to be following up with more interviews to come with Tammy Tran.
Okay.
And
thank you very much. Call me back.
I will. God bless you. Thank you.
Yeah, bye-bye.
I will be back after these messages with Tammy Tran. She's suing Michael Watts and also alleging Bob Hilliard. Actually, she's suing Bob Hilliard and Mr. Kraken, identifying them as attorney 1 and 2 from the federal indictment of the Department of Justice. And she's also indicating that based upon these allegations, that multiple Vietnamese Americans, their identities were misappropriated, and that they didn't have the permission to bring that on. Attorney Richard Minoff, who represents Kraken and Hilliard, commented, "We believe the evidence at trial will show that their role was very different from what is being alleged in the pleadings." Remember, there's always two sides to a story, but you've heard one side, and we have also heard the comment from Richard Minoff, who is saying that he is going to prove that the allegations have no merit. But we'll be watching this case very, very carefully. But again, Tammy Tran, you just heard her, she is suing Mr. Bob Hilliard, a very powerful lawyer in America, not just here in Corpus Christi, and Mr. Kraken from Houston, and she alleges that they invested $10.9 million into a lawsuit against British Petroleum, and that 45,000 Vietnamese Americans' names were either misappropriated or that those individuals did not understand what they were signing. She represents over 500 of those individuals, and she indicates that at the trial of Michael Watts and Gulfport, Mississippi, she and many, many Vietnamese Americans will be there and in force. And she also believes that the allegations and the indictment that the Department of Justice have alleged against Michael Watts are not just allegations. She, and I quote, say, they are fact. So we're going to be following up with her. She is taking on an establishment. She's taking on the good old boys club. She's taking on mass tort lawyers in a way that we have never seen here in the history of South Texas Crossfire. We want everybody to stay tuned, and as we've been speaking, we are going to be uploading the original petition. We're going to be uploading the and that she never had given consent for anybody to use her name, a Vietnamese boat captain. And Ms. Tran indicates that she also has over 500 of their clients that are going to say the same thing, that their identities were stolen, their social securities were stolen, that their names were stolen, and that she alleges that Mr. Kraken and Mr. Hilliard are attorneys number 1 and 2 in the federal indictment that we've been talking about here on this show. And remember, it's our opinion and the station's opinion. She disagrees with me that allegations on an indictment are not evidence yet. The government still has to prove everything in a criminal trial. But in her mind and in her research, she indicates that, again, those allegations, in her opinion and in her research, are fact. So stay tuned. This is getting very, very hot. And we here at South Texas Crossfire can take the heat. That's why it's South Texas Crossfire, and we are interviewing everybody. We've tried to reach Mr. Midoff that represents Mr. Hilliard and also Mr. Kraken, and he did issue a statement, and he said he denies all the allegations and that they are looking forward to taking her on in trial. So more to come. We'll be back.